We have really great sponsors like Foothill Transit. Sponsor us and we will promote you on the show. Now on to our very special program, a special edition on seniors. And today we have fabulous attorney, elder law attorney, Carol Peters. Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Wonderful to be with you, Mary. It's absolutely wonderful. It's an important topic and something that we really need to get people to understand how important planning can be.
Exactly. And you really focus on planning. I want to talk a little bit about your elder law specialty too, but let's talk about the 4 basic documents that are really helpful in planning so we can really avoid these crises in court and some of these other issues where people are not able to make decisions because we didn't put some of these things in place to begin with. So tell me what's important.
I think people think, excuse me, I think people think automatically of a trust and a will because those 2 documents take care of the finances. But what's also critically important is the Advanced Healthcare Directive, which originally years ago was called a Durable Power of Attorney for Healthcare, and that document may still be good. It may not have ended, or an Advanced Healthcare Directive might be called a 5 wishes. Sure. There are lots of different terms for it. Some people from other states call it a living will. But at any rate, it's about having an attorney, in fact, handle your healthcare choices and options. But they need to know what they are. And then the other 4th document would be a power of attorney for items that are not in the trust while you're still alive. So the trust takes care of you when you're alive, after you're dead. The will, if you left something undone, can take care of you after you're deceased.
And who gets what.
But the most important document, in my opinion, is the healthcare directive because that's the one that decides and determines who's going to be in charge of you while you're alive.
While you're alive, exactly. So often I think in court you more than likely see situations where people didn't put these things together. So what kind of happens?
What happens in that instance is that very often we'll need to have a conservator person and or a conservator of estate appointed for the person who, what I like to call delayed, deferral, and denial about death and disability. And I did write an article about that once, but the title was too intimidating, so nobody thought that
well,
it
nobody
really
likes to talk about
it.
dying, so people just don't like to put these things
No.
together. But
No.
in hindsight, we have so many issues within court, and just even the belaboring and the overwhelm that the families who are
And who
typically
should be
left
in charge.
making, yes, and they fight over who should be in charge. But
Lots
if
of
nobody's in
fighting.
charge, it doesn't really matter because then when somebody is faced with, oftentimes the hospital, it's not as big of a deal, but when they transfer into skilled or into other settings.
Well, I think it's a real problem for the doctors because they need to be informed. They have all kinds of marvelous technical things that they can do, but the initial issue after possibly a stranger who saw you collapse in the middle of the street gets you transported to the hospital. Who are you? What's your history? And what are we supposed to be doing? Should we be doing everything, or do you have some health problems that we need to know about? Mm-hmm. So it's critical to get all that documented and to have a wallet card.
And you're also part of bioethics committees.
Big issue with me, really big issue with me.
That you
because
are very passionate about.
There's a lot. I think we often think of the finances and, I want my son or my daughter to have the house and those kinds of issues. But we really need to plan ahead so that we can figure out what's the right plan for the owner of the house so that things can be handled properly. And sometimes, let me just give you an opinion. Right now we have way too much undue influence litigation going through the probate court over people who were alive who failed to plan ahead. And part of that is driven by the lack of looking at any bioethics options or working out any kind of a care plan. So it's a really big deal to me to have a care plan in place so that then the money can get handled.
Right, and with the plan, you know which path to take down that
Right.
road and if it needs to alter in different
Right.
directions.
But clients tell me that they can't make a decision because they don't know what will happen. And the reality is that none of us know what will happen. So we might need to look at outcomes.
Right, and just start in somewhere in that plan, right?
Right.
So Carol, how would people reach out to you if they wanted to put a plan together with you? What number should they call?
Oh, they could call 626-793-9383, and Desiree will be happy to make an appointment for some mutually convenient time. And I don't mind talking to people if they're in their pajamas, if they need to have a home call. I think the whole idea about who do you name as your healthcare agent, that really needs to be somebody that you're comfortable about communicating with them,
Right.
and it's time to let them know.
Right, right. Carol Peters, thank you so much for being on. Really appreciate all the
you.
work that you do too.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Coming up next, we have Dr. Jeffrey Mariano, and he will provide information on what is normal aging and what is not.